UK Prime Minister Liz Truss has just unveiled her government's plan to tackle soaring energy costs. Speaking in the House of Commons, Liz Truss announced that energy bills for households will be capped at £2,500 a year starting in October. That cap will be fixed for the next 2 years. Let's have a listen to the way that Liz Truss announced her energy plan.
Earlier this week, I promised I would deal with the soaring energy prices faced by families and businesses across the UK. And today I am delivering on that promise. This government is moving immediately to introduce a new energy price guarantee that will give people certainty on energy bills. It will curb inflation and boost growth. This guarantee, which includes a temporary suspension of green levies, means that from the 1st of October, a typical household will pay no more than £2,500 per year for each of the next 2 years while we get the energy market back on track. Yeah.
And the Prime Minister confirmed that the support plan would also be extended to businesses, charities and vulnerable industries.
We will also support all businesses, charities and public sector organisations with their energy costs this winter, offering an equivalent guarantee for 6 months. After those 6 months, we will provide further support to vulnerable sectors such as hospitality, including our local pubs. My right honourable friend, the Business Secretary, will work with business to review where this should be targeted to make sure those most in need get support. This review will be concluded within 3 months, giving businesses certainty.
What we don't know yet is exactly how the plan will be paid for. Liz Truss says her Chancellor will set out the expected costs and how it's going to be paid for as part of an upcoming fiscal statement, but confirmed that it won't be based on imposing a windfall tax on energy firms. That is a call that is being made by the opposition Labour Party.
I recognise that people are struggling with their energy bills, and that is why I have brought forward this debate as soon as possible to give people reassurance ahead of this winter that energy bills are going to be affordable. And we will be bringing forward emergency legislation to deliver this policy. My right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, will set out the expected costs as part of his fiscal statement later this month. And I can tell the House today that we will not be giving in to the Leader of the Opposition who calls for this to be funded through a windfall tax. That would undermine the national interest by discouraging the very investment we need to secure homegrown energy supplies.
And I'm just going to bring you some breaking news because actually around the time that Liz Truss had been giving her statement in the Commons, there were some interesting scenes as it appeared that briefing of the Prime Minister was going on by the former Chancellor of the government, Nadhim Zahawi. We also saw Keir Starmer, the Leader of the Opposition, leave the chamber at one point. We now have a new statement from Buckingham Palace, which may explain what that briefing was. Buckingham Palace saying in a statement, "Following further evaluation this morning, the Queen's doctors are concerned for Her Majesty's health and have recommended she remain under medical supervision. The Queen remains comfortable and at Balmoral." Now, you will remember that yesterday evening the Queen cancelled a meeting of the Privy Council that she was due to host virtually. We were told at that point that the Queen had been advised to rest because of a very busy day the day before. That was the day that Liz Truss and Boris Johnson had travelled to Balmoral to see the Queen for that handover of government. So, as I say, Buckingham Palace saying that the Queen, her doctors are concerned for her health. They've recommended she remain under medical supervision. The Queen remains comfortable at Balmoral. Buckingham Palace also telling us that family members of the Queen have been informed about the medical situation that doctors have advised about. So obviously we will keep a very close eye on that one indeed. But returning to Liz Truss and what she was saying in the Commons earlier, we can talk now to London correspondent Giles Gibson, who joins me now. And Giles, just to go back to that idea about how this energy plan, this support plan for the UK economy is going to be paid for, we don't know yet.
Yeah, that's right, Ollie. We just saw Liz Truss on her feet in the House of Commons chamber, speaking for many minutes, taking interventions, outlining all of the different details about this plan, the fact that she's effectively going to lock the cost of energy for a typical household at £2,500 per year, also outlining some longer-term strategy, if you like. One of the major things that I really picked out of her statement was that she said she wants the UK to become a net energy exporter by 2040, so in less than 20 years. But what we did not hear from Liz Truss, and what she promised we'll hear from her new Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, was any sort of headline cost. We have had, in the build-up to this announcement, some estimates coming out from different independent bodies and think tanks about how much this could cost. They've been putting this at well over £100 billion. I think what you have to remember here really is that this is something that is very difficult to cost out from the start, because of course it depends on gas markets, it depends on electricity markets, and it also depends on what Russian President Vladimir Putin does in terms of gas supplies to Europe. So no headline figure yet, but just to put this in context, Ollie, the furlough scheme that we saw right at the height of the coronavirus crisis here in the UK, that cost £70 billion over the course of 18 months. So this scheme is going to run for 2 years. We could pretty fairly expect it right now to go well north of that. So this is a very, very significant intervention from Liz Truss in just her first few days in office as UK Prime Minister.
OK, Giles, and while you're there, just back to the Queen, we've had the Speaker in the House of Commons just saying that we send our best wishes to Her Majesty the Queen, and she and the royal family are in our thoughts and prayers at this moment. As I was saying, the Queen's family members, we're told, have been informed about the medical condition. Some royal sources suggesting that the speculation that there had been that the Queen may have had some kind of fall. They say that speculation, royal sources, is not correct. That is wide of the mark, is what they are briefing royal journalists at the moment. And Giles, just remind us, we did see the Queen on Tuesday for that moment of the handover of power between Boris Johnson and Liz Truss.
Yeah, Ollie, of course, Buckingham Palace, always, when it comes to the Queen's health, they are very, very tight-lipped about what is going on. They release very few details about it. And as you see that statement from Buckingham Palace, not much information in there. But you have to look at the progression just over the last couple of days or so, because, of course, we saw on Tuesday those photographs of a smiling Queen Elizabeth. Yes, she was holding a wooden walking stick, but she greeted Liz Truss at Balmoral Castle to appoint her as the new Prime Minister of the UK. Then on Wednesday we had the news that she was cancelling a meeting that she was supposed to have with her Privy Council. That meeting was only supposed to take place virtually. It wasn't a meeting in person, but the Queen decided, or her staff decided, that she was too tired, that she didn't have the energy to attend that meeting. And now we have this latest statement from Buckingham Palace saying there is now some concern for the Queen. So we will certainly be watching how this continues to develop over the course of the next 12 hours, the next 24 hours or so.
Yeah, the new UK Prime Minister, she says this: the whole country will be deeply concerned by the news from Buckingham Palace this lunchtime. She goes on to say, my thoughts and the thoughts of people across our United Kingdom are with Her Majesty and her family at this time. We will, of course, keep you up to date on that particular story. But going back to Liz Truss's major energy plan, we're now being joined by Hilary Ingham, from London, an economist at Lancaster University. Hilary, what did you make of Liz Truss's plan to the extent that she revealed of it in the Commons?
Well, I think it was very much expected. I mean, what is quite ironic is that Labour have been pushing for some sort of intervention like this over the recent days. Essentially, given that we've already got the £4 that's going to all families, it's going to leave us pretty much in the same situation as we are now. Of course, what your previous correspondent said is absolutely true, that we don't know how they're going to pay for this because we have to wait for a later fiscal statement. But I think we can be pretty certain that it's going to be funded by borrowing, which will probably be flowed back through the tax system over the years to follow. Also, as was noted, this is going to be way more expensive than the furlough scheme, which indeed did cost 70 billion. So we're looking at a figure, I would say, of 100 billion, if not more. And of course, one of the things that critics will say about this is it is not actually targeting those in most need, because it is a blanket policy covering all. But of course, the reason she's choosing to do this is it's very quick to implement. Whereas if you're going to put anything through the benefit system, it's quite complicated and it's not clear that they would get the financial support to the people at the time they actually need it. So that's why they've gone for this universal policy.
And Hilary, just on that note that you mentioned there of how much this is all going to cost, of course the government can't really know that, can it? I mean, it could be even more expensive than is currently being reported, depending on where energy prices globally end up in the next year or 2 years.
Yes, we don't know where energy prices are going to end up, so that's an unknown. And one other thing that hasn't been mentioned, of course, this is rather weather dependent. So if we have a very mild winter, people's energy uses will be lower. We don't actually know what people's bills are actually going to be. We don't know what's going to happen with the situation, with Russia, but it doesn't look like anything is going to change. It looks like Nord Stream has actually been cut off. We don't know what world prices are going to do. So it really is an open-ended check that Liz Truss has sort of put on the table here. But I don't think with the sort of figures that were being quoted for future price rises for energy, I really don't think she had any option. She had to do something. Now, of course, what might be controversial for some people is ruling out a windfall tax, because some people will say, look, these energy companies have been making huge profits, so why shouldn't they pay for it? But of course, they will argue that in the past, they've been capped and they haven't been making huge profits. And also, if you take funds away from them, it might deter them from making investments into future more green energy projects that we need to see come on stream to make us less dependent on things like Russian gas.
OK, Hilary, thank you. That's Hilary Ingham joining me live.